Ladies, let's have an honest conversation. How many times have you walked away from a conversation with a man and thought, did I say too much? Or was I too nice? Too reserved? Did I sound needy? Was I too strong? We've all had those moments where we overthink every word, wondering whether we came across the way we wanted to. Not because we care, because we want to create a real connection without losing ourselves in the process. And that's where the real challenge begins. Because communication with men, especially in the early stages of attraction, isn't just about what you say. It's about how you carry yourself in every word, your tone, your pauses, your boundaries, your curiosity, and most importantly, your energy. The truth is, men don't fall in love with information. They don't fall for the resume, the job title, or the clever anecdotes. They fall for the feeling a woman gives them in conversation. That energy, the way she holds herself, the way she listens, the way she responds, it either pulls him in or pushes him away. But here's the most important thing I want you to take away. High-value women don't talk to men hoping to be chosen. They talk to men as if they are doing the choosing. There's no desperation in their voice, no seeking validation, no need to overcompensate or prove they're good enough. They've already decided they are. So the conversation becomes less about performing and more about exploring. They aren't auditioning for a role in his life, they're interviewing for a role in theirs. And when a woman communicates from that place, when she brings her full presence, standards, playfulness, and emotional intelligence into how she speaks, everything about the dynamic changes. She becomes magnetic, not because she's trying to be sexy, but because she's speaking from value, from self-worth, from emotional abundance. And that is the single biggest shift that separates a forgettable conversation from one that a man can't stop thinking about. So if you've ever wondered why some women seem to effortlessly attract high-quality men, not just for a date, but for something deeper, it's not luck, it's not beauty, and it's not about saying the perfect thing. It's about knowing how to speak like a woman who values herself. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Let's break down 5 powerful ways high-value women speak to men, ways that shift the dynamic, spark attraction, and create meaningful connection without ever compromising who they are. Let's start with a small but powerful truth. High-value women don't enter conversations to impress. They enter conversations to connect. It sounds simple, right? But think about how most people operate in early attraction, especially when they're speaking to someone they're really interested in. There's a subtle, almost invisible pressure to perform, to sound smart, be charming, keep it light, keep it sexy, keep it funny. And in trying to check all those boxes, we lose the most magnetic thing we have, our presence. You can tell when someone's talking from insecurity. Their energy is just a little too high. Their laughter comes a little too quickly. They fill silences with more questions or too much backstory, not because they're bad at conversation, because they're trying to manage how they're being perceived. High-value women flip that script. Instead of asking, how can I get him to like me? They ask, do I even like him? That shift puts them in the position of emotional leadership, and it instantly calms the energy in the room. Why? Because curiosity is grounded. Curiosity doesn't seek approval. Curiosity doesn't need attention. It listens, it explores, it observes. And that energy, that's what draws a man in. Because most men are used to women reacting to them, laughing a little too hard, validating their stories, trying to keep the spark going. But when a woman asks questions, not out of fear of silence, but from a genuine desire to understand who he is, it disarms him. It slows him down. It brings him out of performance mode too. Suddenly, it's not about flirting anymore. It's about connecting. Here's a little example of what that looks like in practice. Instead of asking the generic, what do you do for a living? Try, what do you love most about what you do? Or what made you want to get into that field? Notice the difference? One is surface level, the other invites depth, and that depth signals something very powerful. You're not here to be entertained, you're here to engage. That makes a man sit up straighter, that makes him think differently about you. Because you're not trying to win him, you're trying to learn about him, and only if he's someone worth investing your energy in. That's what high-value women do. They don't compete for attention, they command it through intention. They lead with curiosity, not to prove anything, but because they already know their worth. And that's what makes them unforgettable, because when you remove the performance, the pretending, the pressure, what's left is presence, and presence is the most attractive thing in the room. One of the most captivating traits of a high-value woman is her ability to play. Not play games, but play with energy. She knows that flirtation isn't about being overtly sexual or turning every interaction into something intense. It's about creating a space where both people can be light, playful, and a little bit cheeky without ever losing respect. That kind of teasing, the warm, confident kind doesn't just create attraction, it builds emotional intimacy, and most importantly, it sends a message. I'm not here to prove myself, I'm here to enjoy this. But here's where the real magic lies. High-value women don't use teasing as a defense mechanism to keep people at arm's length. They don't hide behind sarcasm or try to mask their vulnerability with a hard edge. They aren't cool girls who pretend not to care. Instead, their teasing is laced with warmth. There's a softness underneath it. You can feel that their playfulness comes from a place of joy, not fear. They're not afraid of being seen, and they're not afraid of seeing you, and they flirt with a smile, not a smirk. And that tiny difference? It's everything. When a man interacts with a high-value woman, he feels challenged, but not punished. She keeps him on his toes, but he doesn't feel like he's failing some invisible test. If he says something a little too cocky or self-congratulatory, she doesn't roll her eyes or shut down. She playfully redirects the energy. She might say something like, "You're cute when you're confident, just don't get used to me agreeing with you." There's the balance of edge and affection. And that's what makes her irresistible, because she creates space for spark without inviting ego. What high-value women understand intuitively is that teasing, when done with warmth, creates a safe emotional playground. It signals, I'm here, I'm present, and I'm not afraid to have fun with this. But at the same time, they never let that playfulness slide into mockery. They never let flirtation override dignity. Because they know they can be charming and grounded, light-hearted and clear about their standards. They never weaponize their wit. They use it to build connection, not superiority. So many women fall into the trap of thinking they have to be either sweet or strong. But high-value women don't choose. They're both. They flirt with kindness. They tease without demeaning. They know how to make a man laugh. And they also know how to make him think twice. That combination, that's rare. That's unforgettable. When you tease with warmth, you do something powerful. You make a man feel alive. You wake him up. You invite him to rise to your level. And most of all, you make him want to earn more of your energy, not just have it. Let's clear up one of the biggest misconceptions about confidence in dating. Having boundaries doesn't mean building walls. High-value women understand this distinction better than anyone. They know that a boundary is not a punishment, it's an invitation. It's a quiet but powerful way of saying, if you want to be in my life, here's the energy that lives here. They don't express boundaries with anger or shame. They express them with clarity, calm, and even grace. And in doing so, they instantly teach men how to interact with them, not by demanding it, but by embodying it. A woman who uses her boundaries as a filter doesn't let every man in just because he's charming, attractive, or persistent. She doesn't get swayed by chemistry alone. Chemistry is great, but it's not a license to cross lines. She knows what feels good in the moment and what feels right in the long run. So when a man says something inappropriate, pushes too hard, or crosses into uncomfortable territory, she doesn't shrink, get flustered, or ignore her instincts just to avoid being difficult. She speaks up, not to control him, but to center herself. Now, here's the magic. She doesn't do it in a reactive way. She doesn't snap or punish or make a scene. She calmly names what she feels and what she expects. For example, if a guy is getting a little too pushy early on, she might say, "Hey, I'm all for having a great time, but I move at my own pace. If that's not your style, that's totally okay, but I won't compromise mine." That one sentence isn't me. It's not defensive, it's directive. It's saying, you're free to be you, and I'm free to decide if that works for me. That's what it means to use boundaries as a filter. She's not putting up walls to keep men out. She's letting her standards do the sorting for her. And the amazing part, the right man doesn't see those boundaries as a burden. He sees them as a sign of emotional maturity, and he respects them. He may even be drawn to them. Why? Because boundaries give direction. They define the edges of your self-respect, and they let him know exactly what kind of woman he's dealing with. On the other hand, women who use boundaries as a defense mechanism often carry a different energy. Their tone may come across as cold or guarded. Their rules may feel like tests rather than expressions of self-worth. There's an edge of past hurt in the way they protect themselves. And that energy, though understandable, often keeps even good men at a distance. Not because the boundary is wrong, but because the delivery feels heavy, closed, or combative. The difference is subtle but profound. A high-value woman doesn't set boundaries from fear. She sets them from self-knowing. She's not trying to protect herself from every possible hurt because she knows she can handle herself. Her boundaries aren't rigid, they're respected because she respects herself first. And that, more than anything, is what creates attraction that lasts. One of the clearest signs of a high-value woman is this. She speaks from her heart, not her ego. That doesn't mean she's always soft or vulnerable. It doesn't mean she overshares or wears her heart on her sleeve from the first moment. It means she has the courage to speak with emotional honesty, even when it feels risky. She doesn't play games. She doesn't manipulate. She expresses how she feels, not how she wants to appear. This is rare because most of us at one point or another have been trained to communicate from ego, to look like we're in control, to sound unbothered, to be the one who cares less. We delay texting back, not because we're busy, but because we want to seem cool. We suppress disappointment so we don't come across as needy. We act like we don't mind certain behavior, hoping it will just fix itself because we're scared that expressing our truth will make someone walk away. But what ends up happening is this. We build relationships based on performance, not on connection. High-value women reject that entire strategy. They know that short-term control kills long-term intimacy. And they aren't afraid to express their emotional reality, even if it makes them vulnerable. If a guy cancels last minute, she doesn't lash out, but she also doesn't pretend she's fine. She says something simple like, "I was disappointed. I look forward to seeing someone when I make time for them. And I value people who follow through." No drama, no shame, just clear, grounded truth. And that truth becomes a mirror. It invites him to rise to a higher level or to walk away if he can't meet it. That kind of emotional honesty is powerful. It says, I trust myself enough to be real. It's not about controlling how he responds. It's about respecting how you feel. And when a woman does that consistently, something beautiful happens. She becomes safe to connect with. A man feels like he doesn't have to guess where he stands. He doesn't have to navigate passive aggression, games, or mixed signals. He gets to meet a woman who brings her whole self to the table. Now, here's the nuance. She also knows when and how much to share. Speaking from emotion doesn't mean oversharing your whole emotional history on date one. High-value women are emotionally open, but also emotionally measured. They reveal pieces of themselves in a way that invites closeness, but always holds space for self-respect. They don't collapse into a man's arms the moment he shows attention. They reveal emotion in a way that says, I'm human, I'm here, and I'm strong enough to be real with you. That kind of energy is magnetic. It cuts through the noise of dating games and confusion. It makes a man feel like he's with someone emotionally awake, and it invites him to show up with his emotions too. Because real connection doesn't happen between egos, it happens between hearts. And when a woman leads with hers, the right man doesn't run, he leans in. So let's bring this home. When you hear the phrase high value woman, don't think of someone who's flawless, untouchable, or always has the perfect thing to say. Think of someone who is emotionally grounded. Someone who knows her value so deeply she doesn't have to prove it in every conversation. She can show up with curiosity instead of insecurity, with playful warmth instead of cold sarcasm, with boundaries that filter, not walls that isolate, with emotion instead of ego, and with the confidence to invite connection, never chase it. She doesn't talk to impress a man. She talks to understand him. She doesn't flirt to control a moment. She brings joy into the room. And she doesn't give her energy away just because someone shows interest. She listens, she watches, she lets people earn access to the most intimate parts of her life because she knows her presence is a privilege. And that energy, that's what makes her unforgettable. So the next time you find yourself wondering how to hold a man's attention, ask yourself this instead. Am I speaking from connection or from fear? Am I inviting him in or chasing him down? Am I being real or just trying to be liked? Because the moment you speak from the place of your true worth, you stop trying to be chosen and you start choosing. And that's when everything changes. If this resonated with you, here's what to do next. Drop a comment below. What's one shift you're ready to make in how you talk to men? Like this video if you're claiming your high value energy starting today. Subscribe so you never miss the tools, mindset shifts, and strategies that help you level up in love and life. And share this with a woman you love who deserves to hear that she doesn't need to become someone else to attract better. She just needs to come home to herself. You have nothing to prove, only presence to bring. And that's your most powerful language.